Welcome, everybody, to our webinar all about the blueprint to success and what investing in yourself looks like. We'll be hearing from 5 different panelists this evening, and these people have all demonstrated the art of investing in themselves. We appreciate you being here. For anybody who is not a panelist, we ask you to please mute your microphones and turn off your camera, just so we can all focus on the panelists and the wonderful information they have for us. Thanks, and we'll turn it on over to Kyle.
First, I want to tell you a little bit about each of the panelists. I'll just tell you how long. We kind of have a pretty cool spectrum of people who are on the panel because they've been with me. They've been planning clients of mine for different periods of time. So we'll start with Dave Ewell. Dave has actually been a client of mine for 22 years. So we've worked together for a long time. I've seen his kids grow up. It's kind of crazy. So it makes me feel old whenever we have meetings, because then he's like, oh yeah, and so's married and they have kids now. And you know, so it's weird, but that's where we're at. And then we've got Jared and Jennifer Johnson, and they've been clients since 2015. So 9 years this year. Time flies, right?
It does.
And then Josh Johnson, he's been a client of mine for a couple years now. And Landon Tolman is a newer client. He's been with me for a little over a year. And so I think it's pretty cool to see kind of where everybody's at in terms of investing in yourself. They are all doing it differently. So it'll be fun to hear everybody's perspective and everything like that. So I'm excited about that. And I've got some tough questions for them, so it'll be good to hear their answers. Before we go into those questions, though, and pull our panelists over on the main screen, there's a survey. For whatever reason, the past couple webinars, we've had a hard time getting very many people to fill out this survey. This survey is not dangerous. It won't hurt you if you fill it out. There's actually a place in there that says if you want us to reach out to you, you can say yes on that part. If you don't, then I promise we will not. But we still would love your feedback on the survey. So please get your phone out, scan this QR code, and complete the short survey either during or at the end of the webinar. We would really appreciate that. So let's start with, I think it'd be interesting for everybody to hear kind of your backgrounds, because you each have a little bit of a different educational and professional background. Let's start with Landon. Tell us a little bit about your educational background, your profession, and then we'll go to Josh, and then Dave, Jennifer, and Jared at the end.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm glad you're asking about both education and profession, because for me it's very different. My education background, I have a bachelor's of science in nursing. So I'm technically a registered nurse, went through college, but definitely don't do nursing right now. I actually own a door-to-door window replacement company, which is very different than nursing. So yeah, all through schooling, I would go out and do like summer sales. I've heard a lot of guys that go and do that. Did pretty well, led teams, worked construction during the school year, just part-time. And then by the end of my college education, I got to the point where I realized, you know what, I'm really good at the sales thing. I really enjoy it. I love teaching and mentoring. There's a lot of good money in it. I'm going to just actually stick with this and keep going on that route. And then one thing led to another. Had a summer where I didn't do as well as I'd done in the past. So I started looking at other options, got into window sales, which I had never heard of in all 5 years of door-to-door. So I was surprised by that. Did really well in that, was breaking some industry records, and then felt like I had a lot of value to add in the marketplace with my background and training. So I got with some of my buddies who also have similar background to me, and we started Revival Windows, and it's been really successful. We just celebrated our 1-year mark last week, and it's just been a blast learning. Yeah, a lot of learning, a lot of growing pains. But this whole webinar is about investing in ourselves, and that's been a huge investment in myself. So it's been fun to watch that.
Awesome. Thanks, Landon. That's fantastic. All right, Josh.
I too have nothing to do with what I went to school for. I graduated from BYU with a degree in public relations. After I got my degree, I ended up with a boring desk job working for an energy consulting firm. We had super boring clients, like all the major utilities out here, like Rocky Mountain Power, Dominion Energy. And so I was looking for something new. So I started studying for the GMAT. I figured if I'm going to sit at a desk the rest of my life, I might as well get paid more. So while I was studying for the GMAT to go back to school, my brother Jared here told me about the opportunity to become a dog trainer. And I left all over. Well, it took me a little bit. It took me probably about 2 months of convincing. I never saw myself as like a business owner or someone that would kind of be in charge of stuff. But I finally got out of my own way and I took the plunge, and it's been amazing ever since.
Fantastic. Thanks, Josh. All right, Dave.
Dave Ewell. I do have one of those boring desk jobs. So yeah, I graduated in engineering and IT, and I've been in that ever since. I've been with Northrop Grumman for almost 26 years now. I've always been fairly mechanically inclined and grew up in a household where my father was very much a do-it-yourself kind of guy. And so I learned a lot of those traits and so forth. And that's one of the reasons why I went into engineering as well. So with that, I had a real interest in, and I'll get into this, I guess, a little bit later, but I did have a real interest in getting involved with real estate, particularly rentals and so forth. And so I actually started doing that just prior to my first meeting with Kyle. And Kyle kind of amplified my vision a little bit more with respect to that. And so that's a side gig that I do. It's definitely not full time, and yet it's something that's proven to be a great way for me to save and invest in myself in various ways and so forth, rather than say maybe the traditional way that corporate America does. With respect to that too, I also, of course, with investing in myself, continue with education and certifications, other kinds of things. I'm just preparing for another cert for work related things that will be coming up in December. And those are ways in which I've been able to further my career. And that's an important part of really investing in yourself as well, whether it's if you're not in your own business. So.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, Dave, you bring a pretty unique viewpoint with the rest of the group because you're still a W-2 employee and you're investing in yourself still in the ways that you can, which I think a lot of people who are W-2 employees, they kind of throw their hands up in the air and say, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to invest in myself. So I love that you're on the panel to kind of demonstrate that and kind of address that issue. So, all right, Jared and Jennifer.
You first.
Okay, ladies first, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of like everyone else, my life did not go as planned, but I went to college planning on just getting a husband and not even finishing.
She got a
But-
husband. A great one,
I did,
might add.
But I was pretty much finished with school by the time we got married. I got my degree in accounting, and my secondary education, I would say, my second education, I worked in an office all throughout college. And through that, I learned how to run an office, which later came into play as we ended up starting our own business. We have a pest control company. And so I help out in our office, and I keep the books with some help. We have some help with that, but I do all the boring stuff. I love my desk job. I'm just there a couple days a week. I'm wrangling kids the other days, but it's super awesome to work with your husband if you can, or wife if you're a man.
Yeah, so I got my degree in international cultural studies, and I got a certificate in intercultural peace building, which basically deals with conflict resolution through mediation, right? And so that's what I put most of my focus on. But I paid my way through school by doing door-to-door sales, and I always figured I wanted to start my own business and work for myself. And so I took that knowledge that I learned from knocking doors and applied it to start up our own. So.
And I do have to add for him that he uses his degree quite often in conflict resolution, whether it be with employees, between employees, or with customers. Just the other day, he handled a call so well. And I it's partly natural, but I think also part of his education as well.
Awesome. I think our whole country could use a little bit of conflict resolution.
Just a little bit.
A lot of it.
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool. I love the diversity of background, education, and skills, and the things you've learned kind of through non-formal ways as well as formal ways. And I loved, Dave, how you mentioned how you continue to invest in yourself and improve in your profession through certifications or other things, right? There's a lot of things that we can do to keep doing that, investing in ourselves. All right. Who on the panel thinks, as you went through the planning process with me, how many of you would agree that maybe the hardest thing to swallow or the hardest challenge to accept is learning how to invest in yourself? You guys think that was one of the hardest challenges? No?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. Why would you say that, Dave?
Well, I guess just showing the fact that I'm have been still at with a W-2 employee, as you might say, rather than a business owner. I have never. I guess I enjoy my job. I enjoy the things that are involved there, and I guess I've never had a real strong entrepreneurial spirit per se, and so. And I felt like I had a good solid career that I could continue to build off of. And so I guess with respect to investing in myself, a lot of times we think of say, starting your own business. I have a brother-in-law that has a very successful business. And so I recognize that that's a great opportunity as well. But so maybe that's probably the reason why one of the frustrations I had was that, as well as maybe even a little bit of pressure, I guess, putting the onus back on me, which sometimes you don't really think about when you're young and first starting out and so forth.
Yeah, great point. Any other comments from panelists on that?
So I think it wasn't necessarily hard to try to invest in ourselves, but for me, I didn't really realize that that was an option, an investing option, that we could put money into ourselves. It just, that idea, it's not weird or anything, but I just never really thought of that as an option. We're not a stock, we're not a 401k, but we're a good option once we learned about it.
I do think it's weird in the fact that it's unusual for a financial planner to say, hey, your best investment is you, and that you should invest in your own ideas, your own business, your own property. And like Dave said, it's a little bit scary, because if you invest in something else like retirement accounts and mutual funds and other things, who can you blame if it doesn't work out? Somebody else, right? And if you're investing in yourself, then who do you blame? It's buck stops there, right? With you. So with that, that's kind of a good segue to the next question. Oh, Landon, do you want to add to something?
Yeah. I think investing in myself was something hard to kind of grasp my head around, just because for me, I initially thought that investing always involved money, but investing in yourself, at least personally, has been most of it free, which is really cool. Like the greatest investment out there, a lot of times comes at no cost, or like $12 on Audible. Like a $12 book on Audible could make me millions of dollars as I absorb that knowledge and then apply it into my business and my life, my relationships, because ultimately it just increases my human life value. For everyone that's read Garrett Gunderson books. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a great point. And when you were talking about the sales, door-to-door sales jobs, and how much you learned from that, there's pretty vital lessons that you learned: how to communicate, how to talk to strangers, how to present something. And if you didn't do well, they didn't buy it, right? And then you didn't make money as a result. And so you had to learn a lot of important skills as far as that goes. That even somebody who's a W-2 employee has to learn those skills too, right, Dave? In your desk job, boring position, you still have to present and sell ideas and proposals and strategies and all kinds of different things. And there's a lot of those skills that are involved. Right?
Definitely.
Josh, anything to add? about the challenge of investing in yourself? It sounds like you kind of mentioned it in your introduction. You talked about how it took you like 2 to 3 months to kind of get to that conclusion where you're like, hey, maybe I should invest and start my own business.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like Jen said, I didn't really know that investing myself was an option. You always think financial planning, you're investing in stocks, investing in other things. And so I guess the hardest part of it is that it forces you to be creative, because a lot of people want to be told what to do, what to invest in. And it's easy, right? It's very dismissive, right? It's a lot harder to invest in yourself, but a lot more rewarding.
It takes really digging deep and finding out what you are willing to really put the time in and effort, right? Versus just writing a check. So several of you I know have invested in the past in the more traditional means like 401ks and IRAs, and we won't name names, but tell us about that experience and why over time you've decided that the best method actually is to invest in yourself. How did that change for you?
Having been in the corporate world for a really long time, of course, it's all about 401ks and so forth. The company I work for definitely provides a 401k. They do a lot of advertising and a lot of effort to encourage people to participate in that as well. And I won't be afraid to say that I have invested in a 401k, and in fact still have a 401k. I no longer invest in it, nor have I for quite some time. And I've even played around a little bit with a Roth IRA as well, but early on also. But I think that really the major reason there is, and part of it is of course been my journey with Kyle as well, as we've been. It's crazy to think it's been 22 years now, but really a lot of that is understanding and recognizing that there really isn't a lot of ability for liquidity. A lot of the principles that are taught there, velocitizing of money and things like that, it doesn't lend itself for that. And in fact, they're really just savings plans, so to speak, versus in really investing. And of course, there's really no control over those as well. And you just throw your money in, let it sit and wait and hope that it continues to grow and so forth. So those were some of the principles and thoughts that came to mind when I decided, okay, it's time to step away from that those traditions early on in my career and so forth, and really start looking at other means and opportunities to put that money.
Very good. Does anybody else want to add to that?
So we had, invested some money in the stock market before, and it's just kind of like, oh, I hope it does well. As Dave pointed out, you have no control over those things. Whereas when you invest in yourself, your results are a direct result of your work. Like how much work you put in to investing in yourself equals what you yield out of that. And so having that control over, I think really for good or bad, like you mentioned earlier, if it doesn't turn out very well, there's no one else to blame. But at the same time, you can just put a whole heck of a lot of effort into it, and then you get a whole heck of a lot more money than you would in a traditional thing like a stock market.
Yeah, fantastic. Anybody else want to add to that?
If I can add a little bit. So yeah, I used to put money into like a Roth IRA for a long time. I feel like the mentality behind it was very much okay, this is my long-term savings goal. Kind of that nest egg mentality, which obviously, as I've learned more about money and finances, I've very much moved away from that. So I no longer invest into that. I've also made the mistake of chasing high returns in stock markets and crypto. Jumped on that bandwagon when that came around. Not a good move, just because I had zero control over it. It's so volatile. Everyone's making a ton of money. I jump in, I make double my money. I'm like, sweet, dumping more into that. And then a month later, it like goes half of what I've put in, and I'm like waiting for it just to get back up before I pull my money out. It's like, that was stupid.
Awesome. I think one of the things that you guys have been talking about is kind of the conflation of the words investing and saving that occurs, right? With the traditional investing, they call it saving. In fact, they call it a retirement savings account or a retirement savings plan. And everybody that I've ever talked to going through the planning process, if I say, hey, is there a difference between investing and saving? They all know that there's a difference, that those aren't the same thing. And yet people still are doing it, right? They're putting money into those accounts in a way of saving automatically, systematically, without thinking, right? They're just putting it in there. And at the end of the day, the money doesn't go into a liquid, guaranteed, accessible place. It's going into the market where it could gain value, could lose value. You have no control. What about cash flow? How important is cash flow in this equation as it relates to the difference between traditional investing and what we would call real investing?
Just going back to my boring desk job, right? This is even before I met with you. I was just saving 10% of my paycheck anyways, right? Just saving 10%, not knowing what I was going to do with it. I was just saving it, not knowing what I was going to invest it in. And then when the opportunity came for me to buy into a franchise, lo and behold, this money had a purpose, right? Whereas if I, wasn't saving it, I wouldn't have been ready and wouldn't be able to make the plunge.
Or if it was in a retirement account, right? Then you're kind of restricted in your use. Everybody's a little bit afraid to pay taxes, and the word penalty sounds really scary. So if you pull money out, you're going to be taxed and penalized. And so, by design, it really works well for financial institutions who want to hold on to your money for a long time. That idea of paying a tax and penalty really keeps them from touching it usually. So yeah, you were saving it in a place that you could use, and that gave you that opportunity.
The way I was raised was when you only go into debt for a home, a car, and business. And that was pretty much it. And so my mentality was always very much once you get your business going, no more debt. That was just, debt is bad. Don't want to pay interest, bad interest. But something that I learned meeting with you and learning these different principles is the importance of cash flow. That we got a good interest rate on our first business vehicle, and it took everything in me not to just pay it off because we had that money, but instead we were able to open a division of our company with that money. If we just paid off the truck, we would just have the truck, but instead we could take that money, that cash flow that we had, and invest in new equipment that allowed us to expand our business. And that having that cash, kind of like Josh said, when the opportunity presented itself, to be able to what am I trying to say, create a revenue producing activity.
More cash flow, flow, generating more cash flow.
I love it. Yeah. When I talk with our clients, I talk about there's two types of debt. I don't call it good and bad debt. I call it productive debt and unproductive debt. So productive debt is what makes your income increase. So that can be education. It could be certifications, right, Dave? Or it could be taking a loan to buy a business or a property that's going to cash flow, or buy equipment, right, Jared, that's going to generate more income. So that's the difference, productive debt versus unproductive debt. So I'd like you guys to each kind of share what you feel like investing in yourself looks like. Kind of a little bit more granular. What does investing in yourself look like? Landon, you want to go first?
Yeah, I was going to ask who you wanted to go first. So for me, investing in myself, I'd say primarily it looks like three different aspects that are like the main aspects of it. Number one would be lots of reading and just absorption. For me, I have a lot of stuff on my plate, so I'm constantly running around trying to tackle projects. And my downtime is my car rides. I'm driving out to an area, I'm driving to a customer's home, or I'm working out in the yard, just mowing the lawn, and I'm constantly reading or listening to audiobooks. And that's honestly been the biggest thing for me. I've learned so much from those books, where I feel like the value that I provide for the people around me and in the marketplace has just continued to grow exponentially. So that's aspect number one. And an important part of that, as I've contemplated this recently, is trying to apply those as quickly as possible. I think Garrett Gunderson has a quote, something about how like an idea is potential value, but actually implementing that idea is where the real value is created. So like anyone can read a lot of books and get a lot of knowledge, but it is of no value until they actually implement that. So just trying, failing, and then succeeding. And then the other part of that has been mentorship. And that's huge for me. Just surrounding myself with people who are way better than me and constantly improving themselves. So then I can learn from them. And they also push me to learn more and more. Because that's what initially got me into, I would say, investing in myself are some really important mentors in my life that I was introduced to when I started sales. And I've just found the value in that. And ever since then, I have everything that I wanted to learn. I've gone and found something that's done really well at it and reach out to them and tap into their networks and really ask them everything that they know about it. So that's actually how I found you. I was like, I want to be successful with my finances. I reached out to my uncle who I knew was doing really well with his finances, and he introduces me to you. It's like the mentorship is really big for me. And then number 3, I kind of already hit on real life application, trying, failing over and over again. I feel like you're not going to learn better than that. It's like that's the best way to really increase your value.
Yeah, I love that. I think we'll come back to that idea of how successful people view failure versus people who aren't successful. How do they view failure, and how important that is actually in this idea of investing in yourself. The willingness to be able to experience failure, and how does that help you going forward? How is it a stepping stone? All right, Dave, what does investing in yourself look like?
Well, I'd like to dig in a little bit deeper into working for a company and so forth. Even though I've been with the same company or heritage companies that have been purchased in the past for 26 years, I have had basically 6 distinct roles or responsibilities and so forth. And as I mentioned earlier, there's opportunities, of course, for growth, especially in large companies and moving around and taking a new position, looking for opportunities and so forth. And a lot of that comes through, like I mentioned before, certifications, but a lot of it really is just honing your craft and developing interests in other things as well. And so I've had quite a wide variety of responsibilities over that past 26 years, and it's always fresh to have a new opportunity and so forth. With respect to my side hustle, so to speak, as I mentioned, I am in real estate and mostly rental properties. And one of the things that I've really learned from that is just, as Landon mentioned, just really learning the hard knocks of just going into it and learning a lot and so forth. I've been able to learn a lot about real estate taxes and laws, zoning laws, been able to participate in HOA management, as well as recognizing the fact that you just have to really learn to take care of things yourself. As I mentioned before, I'm a do-it-yourself kind of guy as well, and so I fix toilets and I paint, and I do a lot of things like that as well. Sometimes I hire that out also, but I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty and to really improve the properties that I own and things of that nature.
I love that. And just because I hear this so many times from people that say, I don't want to invest in real estate because I don't want to be woken up in the middle of the night to fix a toilet. How many middle of the night toilet fixes have you done, Dave?
0.
Okay, there you go.
I have had to go.
We just debunked the myth.
Though.
Yeah, but your point, I like your point, is that this has really suited you well because you're willing to do a lot of the work. You're willing, and when you were talking about zoning laws and stuff, I looked over, I saw Jen was sleeping. She was starting to sleep. Jennifer was. Anyway,
That's actually Howard.
But that's why when people come to me and they're like, the question that Robert Kiyosaki says is the worst question you can ask, which is, where should I invest? He thinks that's the worst question because it's each person is unique and what they should be investing in is different, right? For Josh, the Tip Top Canine is a great investment for him. He's fantastic with pets and dogs. He really loves, he loves that. And that's a great thing. Maybe for Dave Ewell, that would have been a terrible investment, or vice versa, right? Maybe the particular rental properties. I mean, I know more to the story about Dave's situation. They developed some raw land, from nothing. And Dave did the research and they brought in utilities and they brought in all kinds of stuff, right? And they did a lot of the stuff that I don't think a lot of people would be willing to do. But I think probably Dave, as an engineer and an engineer mind, he was probably all excited about it, and so it was perfect for him.
I was just going to say that, so I have a son that's actually in medical school right now, and he's kind of working an MD and a PhD at the same time. And he's oftentimes come talk to me a little bit about how the fact that he's just kind of in this zone of, being a poor student and will be a poor student forever and things like that. And I keep telling him that when he graduates, of course, he's going to make more money than his dad ever did. And on a yearly basis. And he really is investing in himself educationally wise. I mean, there's lots of different ways to invest, and he's investing in a particular expertise that will be highly valuable and sought after. So sometimes it takes time and effort to really get to that point and to see the end of the tunnel, so to speak, as well.
Can I correct that and say all the time? It always takes time and effort.
Yes.
Yeah. And
All right.
that's what making yourself looks like, right? Is putting that time and putting the effort, right? And you're going to learn. You're going to have those failures, which will happen, but that's part of the investing in yourself process, right? So when you have those failures, you're less likely to repeat those, especially the really painful ones, right? So you're able to steer clear from those and navigate them. And that's just part of it and part of the investment process.
Yeah. It makes me think of Elon Musk, right? How does he look at when his rockets blow up, right? How many of you watched him? Actually, they landed the rocket back on the launch pad. Incredible, right? Do you think there's any chance that if he was afraid of failure, that he would have ever gotten to that point? No,
Not at all.
never. He would have never gotten to that point. So that's the difference in the mentality. All right, Jared and Jennifer, what does investing in yourself look like?
Well, yeah. So investing in what you know, right? So your strengths, your talents, that's a big one. But not only that, but not be afraid to learn other avenues, right? And open yourself up. So always learning, always having a mind open, to other possibilities, other avenues that you can jump into, but you can do the research and invest in that, learning that education.
Are those avenues totally different than where you were before, or are they somewhat related usually?
Usually they're somewhat related,
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah, usually.
So I think for me, kind of the same thing, using those skills that you have or learning new ones. For example, I am a super nerd and I love spreadsheets. I love systems. I love writing instructions. And that has actually really benefited our business, and it really increased the value of our service. Having those systems in place, our employees are happier. Our customers get the same service no matter what technician is out there. Whenever they call in, every new customer gets the same information. These systems and processes that are in place, should we ever want to sell our business, increases the value of our business. Whereas if you had two different companies that were exactly the same size, bringing the same revenue, if you had a well-oiled machine versus like a pile of parts, the well-oiled machine is going to be worth more. And so even though it's kind of a silly talent that I have, it's been very valuable, and you can see that trickle down. I mean, our customers never say you have excellent systems, but the compliment, some of them that come in can be traced back to, those things. And so that's a skill that in my limited amount of time that I have at our office, I'm able to utilize in that. And it's yielded not direct revenue, but semi-direct, indirect.
Yeah.
That's the word.
Yeah. And I'll just add to that. I mean, we've worked with a third party that's worked with a lot of pest control businesses, very large, the biggest ones in the industry. And one thing they said it's a compliment to Jennifer, is that, you know, our business is ran better than those based on our systems, based on the information, based on everything that we have written down in our processes, or have been run better than the largest business in the industry. But that's because of her, because she's investing in herself and her talents, and she's done extremely well at that, which yields dividends with that. So,
Yeah. Interesting that you brought up systems and processes, because I know Landon and his team are working on that right now. That's one of their investments.
That's exactly
Yeah,
what the thick of it.
All right, Josh, what does investing in yourself look like?
Yeah. So like Jared was saying, I guess recently within the past couple of years, like Jared was saying, not being afraid to learn how to expand yourself and learn new things. For me, that was learning how to trust other people with the product or training dogs, right? So first couple of years of me training dogs, I was a lone man, just by myself, just training dogs 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. And the profitability was great. As Mike Lukowitz will tell you, the biggest killer of profitability is payroll, right? So employees, right? And I was just so afraid to start hiring because I didn't know about withholding tax. I didn't know about workers' comp, all the red tape, all the headaches and stuff that go along with hiring someone. I didn't even want to worry about that, right? I was complacent with where I was, right? But then just got to a point where it just was not sustainable. I was literally working 70 to 80 hours a week by myself and just couldn't do that anymore. And so I was forced, but with my feet to the fire, to start hiring someone. And it was very stressful at first. It still is stressful, right? The stress just changes. However, through lots of trial and error, we finally have really, really, really awesome people. Right, I've got 5 employees that are just amazing, that I would trust any one of them to keep things going a long way, which has been awesome because we just had a kid and my wife just went back to work. She works 2 days a week. And so because I have awesome people, awesome trainers, I don't have to work those days that she goes into work. So I can trust them to keep things going. Whereas before, if I didn't have those employees, I wouldn't be able to do that, right? And Ashley wouldn't be able to go back to work. But also our revenue has just exponentially grown and grown and grown to where I'm making so much more now than I was back when I was just by myself. Just the time it took for me to force myself to learn how to become a manager, right? Because I've never managed anyone before, how to do all the taxes, all the headaches and stuff that go along with having employees. Has been very much worth the investment, and now we're definitely seeing. I'm definitely seeing the payoff on that. Having more free time and the ability to take care of my son, so that we have a lot more happiness here at home.
And I was going to say a little more fishing time, right?
A little fishing time, right?
Everybody on this panel knows I love fishing. So anyway,
So
those are
Canada with Kyle yet. You should do it.
yeah.
No, and it's the best.
Awesome. Yeah. It's so fun. All right. Well, I want to shift gears a little bit and let's talk about principles. So the planning philosophy that I teach and the process that I take our clients through is called principles-based planning. We really focus on principles, and sometimes we call them rules, like rules of financial institutions or the 3 rules for investing. How have the principles that either I've taught or that you've learned in all the reading and the books you guys have listened to or read, how have those affected you? What are some of the principles that really stand out to you? Let's start with Dave this time.
Okay, so I think one of the things that really stood out to me was making sure that we were taking care of ourselves. I guess with insurance and things of that nature, making sure that we were securing our future in that regard and so forth. That was something that, yes, I was aware of insurance and had even had some insurance and so forth, but that was something that stood out. But probably most anything was really having that ability to cash flow and to strive to velocitize money and so forth. Having more of a passive business per se. It may not happen quite as rapidly as say a business would, but it's still something that really has paid off and has helped me understand the significance of that and being able to reinvest more rapidly and be able to meet the goals and so forth that I have. And then the other thing that I think that is not necessarily one of the 5 principles, but something else that I learned having grown up as a child of a school teacher and so forth, traditional pension and things of that nature, and being surrounded by that in a lot of different ways with uncles and others as well, that really this whole concept of just saving for a retirement at the end of the day, so to speak, is really not, why should we do that? Why not just create wealth and look for financial independence? And that might happen when you're 40, it might happen when you're 50, it might happen when you're 65. But those are some of the principles that have really stuck out to me with respect to working with Kyle and some of the things that he's taught.
Awesome. I love, in fact, as you were talking about the insurance at the beginning, it made me think of a quote from Robert Kiyosaki as well, where he said, investing is not risky. Investing without insurance is risky. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, right? Like if you think about the way financial institutions invest, rarely do they invest in something that they can't insure. You know, they invest in things that they can insure. And that's why they're also the richest. You know, they've got the most money. That's where it's all at. That's why they have the biggest buildings in all the major cities across the country. They know how to do it. And I love the idea of that you're bringing out of velocity of money, getting your money back quickly, and then being able to use that again, and how important that principle is in creating wealth. Last thing too, Dave, just not to be repetitive, but the difference between retirement and financial freedom. You know, our goal isn't really retirement. I'm not saying that our clients shouldn't ever retire, but that's not the goal. The goal really is financial freedom, right? And if you love what you do, if Dave just loves working as an engineer for Northrop Grumman the rest of his life, then that's great. He can do that. But what would be more valuable is if he doesn't have to, right? If he has the freedom to choose and be able to do what he wants to do, whatever's most important to him and his family. And that comes from financial freedom. All right, let's go to Jared and Jennifer next on this one. Principles.
I was interested in what Dave was saying. I forgot your question. What were?
What are no worries. What are the principles either that I've taught you guys or that you've read or studied in other places that have become important to you that you feel like really stand out?
Yeah.
No, sir.
Well, sure. Well, I mean, we've already talked about it, hammered it, was investing in yourself, right? That's the big one. But also velocity of money. I love that principle as well. But what's great is about you teaching these principles is something that we don't have to come back and ask you every time, right? So you've taught us like teaching, you know, a man to fish, right? Here's a good analogy for Kyle. Instead, although you've given me many fish before, some good old crappie, but you've also taught, right, how to fish. So it allows us to take those principles and go, you know, do our own investments, but and do our own research and invest in ourselves with that. But now that's not to say that we won't do all of our research and occasionally call you and say, hey, we got this big investment. Is there anything that we missed in our research? You know, and you always bring it back to the principles, and it's been great.
Awesome. Anything to add to that, Jen?
Invest in what you can control and what you know. I think that has been really helpful for us, or what you could know. Jared learned all about land clearing. We had never cleared land before. Well, I still haven't, but that was something he learned about, he wanted to do. And then he knew it, and then we could invest in it. And so that it just makes sense because, you know, with things like stock markets, like, or, you know, 401ks, I don't know how they work. Like, why would I put my money there when I could put it somewhere else that I do know and I could have that control over? So it's like, well, duh. It makes so much sense.
Yeah, invest in what you can control. That's right.
Yeah.
That's a big one. So
awesome. All right, Josh, We'll go to you next.
Yeah. So one principle that I really like that I've read about is from Mike McAllister's Profit First. Profit First has been really big with how I've switched up my entire bookkeeping, my accounting. Profit, like he talks about, profitability is your lifeblood of your business. Like without profitability, without being profitable, you die, right? If you're not profitable, then you're working for free. And I hate working for free. Ask Jared. I used to knock doors for his pest control company, and if I didn't sell anything, he didn't pay me. But I love it so much. It's been really, really good for helping me cut costs in my business and focus on what actually makes me profitable. But I've loved it so much that not only have I applied it to my business, I've applied it to my personal life as well, like for personal expenses. Like, for example, you and I talked about today how I'm saving up for a truck. I want to get a truck, and how I'm making sure that my overall personal account isn't going to take a dip when I buy the truck, right? Just making sure I'm setting aside money every month to be able to afford it. And just making sure that not only is my business profiting, but my personal accounts are growing every month as well.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, we've been mentioning, hopefully people are writing down good notes or will watch the recording, because there's been some really great books that have been mentioned already, or authors like Garrett Gunderson, Mike Michalowicz, Robert Kiyosaki. There's some really good ones. And that's actually one of the questions towards the end we'll talk about, are what are the books you would recommend to everybody to read at the end. So, all right, Landon, how would you answer, what principles really apply and stand out to you?
Yeah. So two biggest things that stand out to me. Number one, which is probably the hardest thing since meeting with you, Kyle, was having, 6 months to a year of income, not living expenses, but income set aside before I'm putting money into investments. That was really hard for me to wrap my head around, especially as an entrepreneur where my income is going like this or up, and I can never catch up with the 6 months of income. And I'm just so anxious to put my money into these investments or chasing these returns. I also am a really big fan of real estate like David. And so my goal is always, as soon as I have enough money, I'm putting it into a house. But Kyle's slow down, make sure you have 6 months of storage. And then on top of that, you can start putting it into houses. And it's been a really big blessing for me and my wife, just having the surety and the peace of mind that we are totally good if we ever have to fork out money for a new car, or something happens with the business and I need to put capital into the business and keep that thing going. Just having that money set aside before I'm putting money into other investments. And then going off of that, the 3 principles to investing, Jared and Jennifer kind of hit on this already, but I love just having those principles to grab an investment opportunity, hold it up against, almost imagine holding it up against the light and saying, hey, does this match up? No? All right, toss that investment. It's not even in question. If it's not what I know, I can't control it. Blake on the last principle there.
Don't chase returns.
And not chasing the returns, then it's a viable option. So I really like having that.
Automated savings, that has been amazing, because recently we made a big change in our business and we're looking at the financial aspect of it, and we're like, okay, worst case scenario, if it doesn't yield this, and then I was like, oh wait, thinking about our automatic savings accounts, I'm like, but we also have this much here and this much here and this much here, this much. We're not super flush, but we would be fine with this investment, and thankfully it's doing well. But because of that automatic savings, it's not something I'm always thinking about, oh, I need to put it over here. So it's just set it and forget it. And because of that, we were able to invest in the business a little bit more, because we had that cushion that kind of forgotten about just because it was an automatic thing. So that's another super awesome principle.
I love it. So principles really are designed to help us make our choices easier in life, right? We're faced with so many decisions throughout our lifetime. And if we have principles that are good, that we believe in, that we know are true, then we can put, like Landon said, those decisions or those choices up against those principles and say, hey, you know what? Does it fit? If it doesn't, I'm going to say no. And that's what Warren Buffett says, and is one of the big differences between successful people and highly successful people. He says highly successful people say no to almost everything, And the reason they are able to say no is because they have that criteria, right? That they're putting those decisions up against, and they can say, nope. Could he have made money violating those principles? Probably, but he definitely has made money following his principles, right? And he probably avoided a ton of losses as a result, right? One thing on the 6 months of income savings, which I think that's awesome that you brought that up, Landon. I'm glad that was a frustrating part. No, no, but it's awesome, because what I wanted to ask everybody on the panel was, for any of you, has timing been exactly how you expected it in any of your investments?
No.
No. And we've all heard the phrase timing is everything, right? Timing actually matters, right? And so if timing is everything, what allows you to have the resilience, the stick-to-itiveness, when timing isn't perfect? And I would say it's that principle is a big part of it, right? That if you have 6 months to a year of income storage, timing doesn't have to be perfect. Things could happen, or things that you didn't expect in the business that you needed to invest money into. You have the resources, and you don't have to panic, and you don't have to go get a loan or beg somebody for money, right? It's a lot better. All right, let's go to the next question. What would you guys each say is the hardest thing about investing in yourself? And I know we're getting close on time. So what is the hardest thing about investing in yourself, would you say?
It takes work and effort.
Work and effort. Okay. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, it's going to take time, right? But you're going to have to put forth effort into it. It doesn't come easily. And so you're going to have to work at it, just like anything in life. In order to get stronger, in order to get smarter, right? It takes work, it takes effort, which takes energy, right? So
are there, do you ever see opportunities come along that are like, there's no effort involved, you just need to send your money? You ever see stuff like that?
They're not good ones.
I've trained you well. No, no, but that's so tempting, right? In fact, I see a lot of very successful people, a lot of clients of mine who are very successful and make very good money, and deals of a lifetime come along, right? And they're presented usually by somebody that they know and trust and whatever, right? And the amount of effort that's required is zero. Like you were just invited into this awesome club that nobody else was invited into, and you can write this check for this great deal that's going to double, over the next 3 years. And so it's so tempting, right, to write that check, because in your business and the things that you've done to make money, it's been a lot of work, a lot of time and effort. And so when somebody presents something that's easy, it can be tempting, right? And I'm sure you've all seen some of those deals. So, all right, let's go to Dave next on that question.
Well, in addition to that, I think, and it was already touched on as well, is just having the capital to get started as well. And so that's part of the working hard and making the effort and so forth, making sure that you've got the capital to really start investing, particularly in my case with real estate and so forth. The first one or two places were a little bit harder to come by than the others have been. And so that's made a big difference, of course. And so it does take time and effort, a lot of hard work and patience as well in building up that capital. And you could even say that capital within yourself, not just referring to money as well.
Yeah. I think you are pointing to an important fact that actually occurs over time. The amount of time and effort should get easier the more you do something, right? There's actually neuroscience involved in that. The more you do it, the easier it is. And actually, because you have some failures along the way, you learn from those. You don't have to keep repeating those. And so you learn, and now it's easier the next time. I've heard and I've read many, many highly successful people say, if I lost everything I had, I could rebuild it in a much shorter time because of what I know. The human capital that Dave's talking about that's between your ears, right? And that, no matter what happens, can't be taken away from you. I love that. All right, Josh.
For me, hardest part of investing in myself was just the initial anxieties, right? Of just stepping completely out of my comfort zone, finally finding something that was going to be worth my investment, right? Had a background in sales, but I hated sales. I'm terrible in sales, right? And owning your business, that's pretty much, if you don't sell, you die, right? And just the initial anxieties of not trusting in my abilities and not trusting in my abilities to manage and to navigate through all the red tape that goes with starting up a business. But yeah, that was, for me, that was kind of the hardest part, was just kind of getting over all of those obstacles that I was putting, in my own path. But yeah, so for me, that's the toughest part.
I think that's a pretty awesome point that you're bringing up too. And I believe that the financial industry is partly to blame for that anxiety, because they have kind of told everybody, hey, we're the experts. You should just send us your money and we'll manage it for you. We'll invest it for you. You really shouldn't trust yourself. That's what's risky, is investing in property and business and all that stuff. That's what they're trying to tell you. Interestingly, though, businesses can get loans from a bank, and people who are investing in real estate can get loans from a bank. But people investing in the stock market can't go get that same loan from the bank. Right. So, and that's based on risk, whether they will or will not lend the money. So yeah, there's this, it's also standing alone, right? There's way more of the crowd is going the direction of traditional investing, and everybody's comfortable, even though they look at their accounts and say, wow, that's not really where I was hoping it would be by the time I was 55, and even though the market's at an all-time high, but they're comfortable in the crowd, right? We do seek the crowd a lot of times. And I think the anxiety kind of comes from, hey, I'm going to go do something that, everybody I talk to isn't doing this. So kind of unique. All right, Landon.
Yeah, the first thing, I kind of already mentioned this earlier, but it's just time, finding time and making the effort outside of my daily routine of like running the business to improve myself and to work on my relationship with my business partners, also my wife outside of work, and just, finding the time, making the effort outside of the routine. That's number one. And then I'd say the bigger thing for me is just the ambiguity of like the ROI of return of investing in yourself is really hard to calculate. It's like I don't know how much more profitable my business is or how much my bank account is going to grow based on me learning this specific skill or asset. It's super hard to put a number or a percentage or a return on that, even though I know deep down, like the yields are way higher than any other investment I could make.
Yeah. In fact, I would say that that actually points to kind of a false measure of success. Like the traditional planning world tries to tell you that average rates of return are what matters, right? And so we're trained, we're like conditioned to focus on rates of return. What actually matters is cash flow. What matters is cash flow. That's how you become financially free. If I owned a property, Landon, that was worth $10 million, could I be financially free right now? Does that mean I'm financially free just because I have a property worth $10 million? No. If there's no cash flow from it, I'm still working. I can't go to the grocery store and say, hey, you know what? I've got this grocery cart full of groceries. Here, look, I've got this property. Let's look on Zillow right now. Let's see what it's worth. And then if it's worth a lot, you'll let me walk out of the door, right? No, that's not what happens. They want cash, and cash flow is what matters. That's what you notice, is that when you invest in yourself and you're doing it the right way, what's going to happen to your bank account? It's going to go up. You're going to make more and more money, right? And that's what makes the difference. And at some point, you're going to have so much income coming in from your assets that you'll say, wow, I don't even know why I'm working my day job. I don't have to do that anymore. Time. I liked your emphasis on time. Do you get extra hours in the day above everybody else? How many hours do you get in a day, Landon?
24.
The same as everybody? Oh my gosh.
0.
Same as everybody. So it's prioritization, right? And I would also say, and I would ask, I guess, everybody on the panel, wouldn't you guys agree that the principle of sacrifice is absolutely essential in this whole scheme of things? Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, there's no way you invest in yourself without sacrifice. And in fact, I would say nothing of real value doesn't require sacrifice. Okay. I think everything of real value does require sacrifice. And sometimes that's time. It's saying like, this is important enough to me. I'm going to make the time for it. I'm not going to play video games or watch this football game, or I'm not going to, watch this TV show. I'm going to read a book, right? There's been a lot of emphasis on a continuation of learning out of this whole panel. All right. I know we're at the end of our time. We're a little bit over. So I would like everybody to end real quick with your top 2 books that you would recommend investment wise, top 2 books, and then one last piece of wisdom that you would share with everybody on that's attending or that we'll watch later on the recording. Let's start with, who wants to go first? I guess I'll ask maybe. All right,
Go first.
we'll have Josh go first. All right.
So, I mean, the first book I read is one that like everyone reads, but it's still just, there's a reason why. It's the Rich Dad book by Kiyosaki. That was the first one that just kind of opened my eyes. Super basic book, but it just really changed my perspective on everything. And then Profit First by Mike Michalowicz for business owners and for just your own personal. It's great for your personal accounts as well. And then my best advice, what really worked out or helped me, is just not stressing out over not knowing what to invest in. Right. So like I said, before I even met with Kyle, I was putting aside 10% that was just sitting in my personal account, not really knowing what to do with it. But yeah, like I had no idea I was going to become a business owner, right? Or franchise owner, but the opportunity came along, and it's going to happen for everyone, right? Just keeping your eyes open and looking for opportunities and investing in something that you're passionate about. I love dogs, and so this has been a great fit for me. Like Kyle was saying, I would be so stressed and so overwhelmed if I were to get involved in real estate. It would just not be a good match for me. But yeah, like for example, I've got a client, a customer that really loves deer hunting, and so he used to. What he does is he would purchase hunting rights for some leases in Missouri to go hunt deer. Well, what he does now is he still does that, purchases the same territory, but now he leases that out to other people. So now he makes a profit over his passion. So there's just lots of ways to find things you can invest in that you're passionate about, but just not stressing out too much about what to do, but just being ready for when the opportunity comes.
I love that. Great advice. All right, Dave.
Okay. Well, one of the books I read years and years ago that probably most people have heard about, which really helped me have kind of a different kind of mindset too, is The Millionaire Next Door. I think there's a lot of important principles there as well, kind of along the lines of sacrifice and really investing in yourself and what's most important and things like that. And so those were things that really helped me align myself to what it really means to be wealthy and become, who you want to be and so forth. Second book that I've read more recently that actually Kyle tipped me off on was The Lifestyle Investor by Justin Donald. And he has done a lot of real estate investment. In fact, it's on steroids, really, a lot more than I have. And just the ideas that he shares there with respect to if you're wanting to purchase something, for example, then invest in something that will pay for that purchase and so forth. And I that really has kind of opened my eyes as well. And that is something that I have been working on and doing as well with my own investments. With respect to something that I guess I would leave for everybody is just, again, a reminder that it takes a lot of effort and time and so forth. And everybody has their own way of going about doing it and so forth. I have children now that are becoming adults, and I've really been trying to help them understand that the need to save for the future, get that 6 to 1 year in place. And I've also been trying to get them involved with talking with Kyle and or his associates. have a daughter that I still need to get around to now that she's married to do that. But really have an opportunity to teach others as well. And I've had that opportunity more recently with some of my children as they're becoming adults.
Awesome. Love it. Thanks, Dave. All right. Jennifer and Jared.
All right. 2 books. My first would be As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, one of my favorite. Maybe because it could be a couple thousand pages, but it's only like 50 pages, right? Just my size book, right?
Yeah.
That's right. And also Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I'd say those 2.
So my book recommendations would be The E-Myth Revisited.
Mm.
It talks about how just because someone is good at something means they'll have a successful business at doing that thing, and that there's 3 main parts that you need or roles that you have in a business. But I'm not going to tell you what they are. You have to go read it, but it's super good.
Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you'll have a successful
doesn't
business.
mean.
Okay.
Sorry. So good thing. Good thing. My other one that I like, it's kind of a long title, but it's Permission to Screw Up: How I Learned to Lead by Doing Almost Everything Wrong. It's about a lady who starts up a cleaning business just so she can buy a pair of expensive jeans. She was a college student, and then she grew a business out of it. But she talks about all of the things that she did wrong and what she learned from that. And I feel like, for me, I hate learning things the wrong or the hard way, like by making a mistake. I'm like, oh, but like Jared kind of pointed out earlier, once you make that mistake once, almost never happens again. You put a system in place to prevent it, or you don't want to feel that pain again. Anyway, it's a fun but informational read, and it also made me feel better as a business owner that other people mess up a lot too, and then they learn from it and keep going.
Yeah. Awesome.
Oh, and advice: learn the principles and trust them. That would be it.
I love that. Thank you. I didn't pay her to say that, by the way.
Not yet.
Not yet. All right, Landon.
Yeah. So my top 2 were mentioned already. So I want to second those real quick. Rich Dad Poor Dad was game changer. That was like the first book that really shifted my mindset on money. And then Lifestyle Investor was awesome. It really helped me understand how whole life fits into investing. That was awesome. But just so you have a longer list here, my next in line would be Killing Sacred Cows by Garrett Gunderson. Love that book. Just debunks a lot of myths around money. And then this one's not directly related to like actual financial investments necessarily, but more along the lines of investing in yourself. And one of my new favorite all-time books is 10X is Easier Than 2X. Really good book for
By
entrepreneurs.
Benjamin Hardy, right? Benjamin Hardy
Yep.
and
Dan
Yep.
Sullivan.
Dan Sullivan. Yep. Awesome.
Super good. Yeah. Just all about who, not how, and finding the who's to help you grow. And that is a huge investment.
Yes.
So.
Awesome.
Yep.
Piece of wisdom.
And
from
piece
you,
of
Landon.
wisdom, I'd say, just don't forget that investing in yourself it does take a lot of hard work and time, but it doesn't have to take a lot of money. Really just find people who have succeeded in what you're trying to do and just mine them for all you can. Because people are very willing to share their wealth of wisdom with you, I've found.
Yes, I love it. And you can not just learn what they did successfully, but you can learn what they failed on, and then
Yeah.
you don't have to repeat that same thing. So
Absolutely.
pretty awesome. Okay, well, that is fantastic. Taylor, do we have any additional questions from anybody in that's remaining in the audience? If we don't, that's okay.
None
we
have
covered
been submitted, but if anybody wants to submit a question in
Okay.
the chat, you are more than welcome.
Yes, if anybody that's watching has a question, we'll hold on for just a couple more minutes. And while we're waiting for those questions, if there are any, just a reminder, I'm going to show the QR code again so that if you will, please complete the survey. That would be fantastic. I'll just leave that up right there. Oh, I don't think you can see it yet. Here we go. Now you can see it. Okay. So if you will, please fill that out. We would love to get your feedback. We plan on doing additional webinars in the future, probably beginning again in January. We'll probably skip the November and December holidays, and but we'll start back up again in January. So we really would love to hear back from you so that we can make the next one even better. There is also a link in the chat if you want to click on that really quick before we end. If you don't want to use the QR code, or you have a hard time using the QR code, there's a link in the chat that will take you to the survey. All right. I just want to thank everybody, all my panelists. You guys all did a great job. You are all sharing fantastic wisdom, and I hope people are really paying attention. Each of you, I know, are on the fast track to becoming financially free. You're making huge progress, and I love seeing that. That's my biggest measure of success as a principles-based financial planner, is seeing my clients succeed and becoming more and more financially free. So I love that, and I know you guys are all doing fantastic at that. So thank you so much for being on the webinar.